Well, executive summary here. This you are proposing that billionaires be able to buy a chunk of the moon or Mars or Venus or whatever right now, so that when they get there, or presumably the moon, they can get there. They can what? Build a summer home?
Well, they can sell the land to other people who want to purchase it.
So we could start a Ponzi scheme.
But it's not billionaires per se. It might be billionaires, but it doesn't have to be billionaires. It could be people it could be a corporation that simply raises the money to do it.
Well, I remember this thing years ago where you can, the National Star Registry. You too can have a star named after you or a loved one for only $25, because all these stars out there are named, H2374-Z, and so they just. Now it's named Louise Hartmann. There's your star. But it actually was not official. It was not legal. It was just the star registry.
Yeah, the point of this is to make it official and legal.
Yeah.
I mean, people have been selling lunar real estate deeds for years.
But they're not real.
But they're not real. There's no legal validity to them.
Right.
This proposal is to change that.
Isn't this kind of a variation on the way that the Europeans colonized the rest of the planet and said, this is ours, even when it wasn't theirs?
Yes,
Africa, North America, South America.
There were people living there at the time.
Well, if you're gonna sell off a planet in another solar system, how do you know there aren't people living there?
Well, I don't think we're worrying about other solar systems at this point. The point is that you can't do this. You cannot make the claim until you actually occupy it and establish transportation to and from.
Right. Okay.
You can't just say I own this, because that's already been determined in court that somebody tried to do that with the asteroid Eros a few years ago, and they said forget about it. I mean, it's not. You can't just say this is mine.
Okay. So up to this point, our argument has been kind of rational and lighthearted, I suppose. What happens though if to take the boogeyman du jour, the Iranian government takes a bunch of their oil revenue and they buy a quarter of the face of the moon?
They can't do it under this law.
Why?
Because the law requires that it be a non-governmental entity.
Okay, so let's say that the richest guy in Iran buys a quarter of the moon and decides to set up a military base there from which he can launch missiles at the United States.
That's physically impractical.
Yeah, it's impractical, but it sure would be. Can you imagine everybody looking at you're not probably old enough to remember Sputnik, but
I am.
Okay, I remember I was little. I think I was 6 years old, 5 years old when Sputnik went over, and you could at night. I remember going out in my parents' backyard with my dad and mom and looking up and watching this thing just slowly move across the sky. This little light, and if you had a shortwave radio, you could hear it go ping, ping, ping. As it passed. And Americans were terrified of this. I mean, terrified. My dad was talking about building a fallout shelter in Lansing, Michigan. And so can you imagine how much more frightening? I mean, the moon is so much bigger and more visible, even though it's not as close. The average person doesn't realize that.
It's not. It would be a stupid place to put weapons.
Shouldn't we say that? I guess the point of my point here is just like with the Antarctic and the Arctic. Shouldn't we say that there are not territorial waters to be had? This is international territory. If humans are going to colonize space, they're going to do it collectively rather than individually.
Well, it would be done collectively. It'd be a bunch of people gathering together.
No, I mean all of society.
Well, Well, that's been the policy for the last 50 years. It's not happening.
But it is happening.
We are not colonizing space. We are not making any significant progress toward colonizing space, because when you have a collective, then there's no incentive for anybody to do anything.
Well, what incentive is there for somebody to do anything anyway? I mean, say I've got legal title to 3 square miles of the moon. So what?
Well, it's in the context of a much larger claim, and it's the beginning of a sovereign nation that would, for instance... So
I can go create my own kingdom?
Yes.
So you're in favor of people having kingdoms?
Well, people can have their own... When a sovereign doesn't mean kingdom necessarily. I mean, the United States is a sovereign entity.
So I could create my own dictatorship?
If the people...
Is this the logical extension of libertarian thought that
No.
You should be able to create your own dictatorship if you've got enough money?
Well, nobody is forcing anybody to go live on the moon.
Right. So nobody's forcing you to live under this dictatorship unless you happen to be the child of a couple who decided to live on the moon and you were born making no decision. Then what?
But
and I live in your dictatorship, and you say that everybody has to.
Why do you assume it will be a dictatorship?
Well, let's say that that Rand Simberg decides that he's going to buy a bunch of the moon, and he gets a corporation together, gets a bunch of billionaires to invest in it. He sets it up as a dictatorship, and he says, okay, everybody has to worship Rand. They've got to bow down to a picture of him, and they got to paint green circles in the middle of their forehead. Now, if I choose to go there, and Louise and I choose to go there, that's fine. But what if we choose to go there and we have children? Our children then are going to have to bow to pictures of you and paint green circles on their forehead?
Well, Rand Simberg wouldn't do that. Rand Simberg would set up something pretty much like the U.S., except it would be more getting back to the original Constitution.
Which means what? You can have slaves?
No. Which means basically the founding principles other than the slaves, which was the fundamental flaw of the founding of the nation, which took us, several decades later, very bloodily, we fixed it.
Yeah, okay, so that's how you would set it up, but you want anybody who wants to set it up to be able to set it up any way they want, right?
I think that we need...
So how's Jim Jones going to set it up if he was still alive? He had a lot of followers and a lot of money, He actually was able to buy a chunk of Guyana.
Yes. And it didn't end well for him.
No, it didn't. So,
or anybody, or the people that followed him, and that right. There are always going to be people like that. But we need a new place where we can do social experimentation and set up more laboratories to figure out what works and what doesn't.
So I get it. You're a libertarian, and libertarianism has never successfully been tried on any country anywhere in the 7,000-year history of civilization on planet Earth.
It was fairly other
and so you're suggesting that by establishing a colony on the moon, you could try libertarianism and demonstrate that it's viable because you can't prove it here on Earth.
Well, yeah, you can't prove it here on Earth because everything's taken. But there was something very close to a libertarian nation, and that was this country at the founding, other than the slavery problem.
I don't think so at all.
And
I would say that if you think that's true, you have not studied the history of the founders or the founding. You haven't read read Madison's notes on the Constitution.
I've read the Federalist Papers.
The Federalist Papers are nothing. That was a sales job for the Constitution, and it didn't talk about libertarianism. And it didn't. And for that matter, the Federalist Papers didn't talk about economic royalists.
It didn't use those words, but it was a very libertarian. The Constitution was a fairly libertarian document. And Hong Kong, prior to
we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, in order to establish the general welfare.
I don't think you understand libertarianism. Do you believe that libertarians are anarchists?
Anarchist is the wrong phrase, but my understanding of one of the principal tenets of libertarianism is that there isn't a society, there's a collection of individuals who are each seeking their own best interest, personal self-interest.
But libertarians do believe that there's a legitimate role for government.
Yes, for defense and adjudication of disputes. Yeah, I got that. Defense and adjudication of disputes. But, well, we shouldn't... we don't have time to make this into a debate about libertarianism. Rand Simberg, people can read all about it at CEI.org. Thanks, Rand.
Yeah, thank you.
Good for you to drop by.